Hey, for the first time in 2 months, we're back to collab. Madam Fitzgerald, the co-host of Dark Now, and with me today, of course, the incomparable Darin Harvey of Beyond Ground Zero. Darin, it's been 2 months, man, long 2 months.
It has been. How you doing, Adam?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Still trying to put up more video content on the new channel, and you have been like living life and also doing so many projects. What are you working on with these days?
Well, it's been a little slow. I know I was working with you on some stuff. We were doing our stuff on Sundays, and then I know you had your issues with YouTube,
Yeah.
um, which was a mess. So yeah, not much. Just busy. Working and kind of having fun outside with the family and golfing a lot, and got football coming up. Big Michigan fan here, so.
Ah,
Well, it was funny because Sean reached out. Sean Russell reached out to me. Actually, reached
yes.
out to me a couple of days ago, and he wants to keep going with the episodes on the Beyond Ground Zero. So, because he's been busy too. I know he's been working with Nelson a lot on some stuff.
Mm,
So, um, just looking forward to that. Just come up with some stuff. I know we have the anniversary coming up
yes.
in a few weeks. So, the 23rd. So, 23rd anniversary of 9/11. So, yeah, just it's just doing stuff slowly, but you know, able to work with you tonight for some stuff and going forward. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah. In fact, you bring up the anniversary coming up in just less than 3 weeks now. And one thing that we have to bring up because it's been such a stigma on our side, hasn't it been? Regarding the truth movement itself. And I mean, we've done our fair share of um, criticizing them.
Critiquing.
Only, yeah, only because not look, I'm guilty of being an antagonist sometimes, but it's not that we're being very stubborn here. It's a critique that is basically against the fringe elements of the truth movement, not as the truth movement as a whole. But unfortunately, in the last, I want to say, last 10 years, approximately, the truth movement has been beset with so many fringe elements, fringe conspiracy theorists, that they have destroyed any type of rational conversation left in the public spectrum. And this is something that's been bothering you as well as myself. Um, so, all right, let's take a look at the more prominent ones. And I'll let you go first. Who has been really a thorn on your side regarding these French conspiracy theorists?
Well, there's been a few. I know Richard Gage is one.
Yeah.
He's blocked me on every platform because I call him out on Facebook, Twitter, now X. Um, and I feel with Richard Gage, he does have a big following. Um, and, he's had the reputation with architects and engineers. He got removed from them for some, you know, other stuff. I'm not going to
Mm,
mention, but um, he's been a one. He's not. I think he's been pretty much banned on a lot of platforms too as well for
yes.
his kooky conspiracies regarding 9/11 or even like with COVID and all this other stuff. So he's one, but I don't have any interaction with him anymore, and I'm glad. Um, but, a couple people, we've dealt with Barbara Honegger before, and she's another one that we dealt with, and Craig McKee is one. I just talked to Craig a couple days ago
Yes.
on Facebook and kind of let him have it because he's promoting the same BS for
Mm,
the last decade, like you've said. No plane hitting the Pentagon. It's funny, Adam, because I know when I get them is when they called me a paid agent. That's what he called me. He said I was a paid informant. And I asked him, I was like, "Well, man, I'm not getting no check from the government, so I don't, I don't know what you're talking about." But he promotes the same no plane hitting the Pentagon. He does believe planes. He told me he does believe planes hit the towers, but he can't get over the Pentagon thing, and I know he doesn't believe in Shanksville as well. So,
Mm.
in my opinion, the Pentagon is probably the easiest one, because there's so much evidence that shows that Flight 77 hit the Pentagon, and people still don't get it. They still think either a missile or a drone or something. Or I know some people believe that explosives were planted inside the Pentagon as well, and they don't want to look at the evidence that shows the plane debris, the DNA from the passengers, their phone calls, the flight data recorder, the numerous eyewitnesses that saw American Airlines hit the Pentagon. It's also too is what gets me is they believe the phone calls are fake, which
Yeah.
we know that's not true. A lot of them, not all were cell phones. A lot of them were the air phones. If they just listen to the phone calls they talk about on the plane with hijackers, with Renee May was one. Um,
Right.
so it's just they don't want to believe that they have to believe it's a government conspiracy because they can't get behind the official narrative of 9/11. And I think we've talked about the official narrative, like what it is, and it's an incomplete story, right?
Mm.
Um, we probably will never know 100% what happened that day. Maybe we will eventually, but maybe I just don't see it. But we have to go by what the evidence we see and what we have. And the official story is we talk about the four planes being hijacked.
Mm.
Um, a lot of them believe, oh yeah, they were hijacked and they flew in the Twin Towers, but they didn't go in the Pentagon or Shanksville. It's like, well, it doesn't make sense because if they used the planes for the World Trade Center, why wouldn't they use it
Right.
for the Pentagon? Or why wouldn't they use it for, they thought maybe Flight 93 was going to hit the White House or, so yeah. So like I said, it's frustrating on that end just because we're 23 years away. And it's still promoting this BS is, really gets to me.
Yeah, look, I share your frustrations here, Darren, because I was very aggressive to these people early on, and I just basically cut everybody off at the end. And because I feel that we are, like you said, 23 years past the due date, right? Past the date itself, and you still can't get over the basics. The
Mm-hmm.
basics are the planes were hijacked, they crashed into the World Trade Center, Pentagon, Shanksville. If you can't even get that right, the hell with the minutia, the real stuff, the pre-intelligence, the terrorism analysis, the failed warnings and whatnot, and what came afterwards. Forget it, and I won't say his name, but I mean, one time Ed Brotherton, our beloved Ed Brotherton of We Are Change LA, formerly,
Mm-hmm.
set up a meeting between, the hell would I say, set up a meeting between Gene Laratonda, Sandra Gelamy, and myself. And he said, could you explain to them, and this is like 3 years ago, you explain to them 9/11 in an hour. And I said, Ed, that's going to be a tough sell, man. I don't know if I can, but I'll try. And I did the best I could. I gave him, the short rundown, what led to 9/11, the Yemen hub, bin Laden, the satellite phones, the calls to Malaysia, the meeting, coming to the United States, all this, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first question I got was from Sandra, and she says, could you simplify it for me? And I
Yeah.
remember looking, I said, man, I just did. And Gene just like threw his hands up. He says, well, I can't remember Arab names anyway. And that's when it hit me. I was like, all right, well, then they're never, ever going to basically get over ground zero because that's where their focus is, World Trade Center 7 and then 1 and 2, right?
Right.
But then that's
Right.
it.
Right.
Because according to Gene Laratonda, who's a prominent activist, and I don't hate the guy, I think he just runs with a bare crowd. I like him as an activist. He's very active. I like that
Yeah.
about him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always did.
Definitely.
But
Definitely.
yeah, I mean, if you're basically going to say that Pentagon, Shanksville, the hijackers are all basically not as important as World Trade Center. I mean, can you imagine saying a part of 9/11 is not as important in terms of like technicality and evidence? I was, that's like me saying, well, what happened at the World Trade Center is not important. I
Mm-hmm.
would never, I would
Right.
never make a distinction. Now, look, I'll admit my shortcomings. When it comes to engineering,
Sure.
I don't know. I believe that the towers, collapsed with some type of improvised device or explosives, right? But can I prove it? No, because I'm not qualified.
Right.
I'll admit that I have limitations here. Now, you know, you get to Gene Laratonda. Not only can he not describe what happened at the World Trade Center, but he'll just tell you about other people's work. But he can't describe 9/11 to you at all because he's not very well learned in this area. Now he could be an activist all he wants, but yeah, I mean, if somebody approaches you on the street, Darin, you'll have an easy time basically explaining what led to 9/11 and what happened on 9/11, what happened on 9/11. For Gene Laratonda, who's out there, he's really out there. He goes a week in advance, goes down there with his truck. Somebody asks him about what happened before 9/11, a deer in the headlights, right? He can only tell you so much. Like,
Right.
do you know 9/11's an inside job? They'll give you a pamphlet, and then that's it. But that's not you're not really assisting much anyway. You're basically giving other people's work to somebody else. Now that's all fine and dandy, but if that's all you are, you're basically a cheerleader, right? So
Yeah.
and when it comes to Craig McKee and when it comes to Richard Gage and all these people, yeah, I mean, the migraines start. I have spent at least 5 years doing pause and plays. I did them with you. I did them with Sean and
Hmm.
Nelson. I think I did more with you than I did with any of those three, maybe Nelson. But yeah, I mean, we covered Christopher Bolin, Rebecca Roth, the heavyweights, challenge these people, even to a debate. Now, I want to get your thoughts on this one because he's been, as of late, and I totally forgot about it, but now he's coming on again and he's basically challenging Adam Eisenberg.
Hmm. A
Uh,
good, a good old friend.
yeah, a $5,000 challenge, Darin, uh,
Why?
for him for debating him on a truth to platform regarding the Pentagon. What has been your thoughts regarding this?
Yeah. So Adam Eisenberg came out, I would say, what, 3, 4 years ago, and I think he did like a
Hmm,
video in his car talking about how he the
that's right.
first he was there, he didn't see plane debris, he worked for Pratt and Whitney, blah 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 blah. So we actually invited him to a Zoom call with me, you, Nelson, Sean, and Ed, and we're like, okay, we'll give this dude a chance. And he went on there and basically talked about Wilbarg or wherever his name is, and how he was there, and he thinks he's working for, I think, the CIA, whatever, was part of the inside job at the Pentagon and part of 9/11. So after we were done with the Zoom, I remember in the Zoom I kind of got on him because we were talking. He was kind of going through the nope, he didn't see plane debris and all this stuff. He didn't think the Flight 77 hit the Pentagon, and I got on him a little bit, and I kind of like cooled down because I was getting a little irritated. But after he finished, we all like stayed after and kind of like, yeah, we don't trust this guy. This guy's full of crap. So yeah, so he did the challenge, about $5,000 for a debate. I think we can both debate him in 5 minutes, and I don't think he can refute any of our claims, because what I'll say about Eisenberg is he's a liar. Okay. And the reason I say that is because he says there's no plane debris there, which is not true, because you interviewed James Schwartz, the incident commander at the Pentagon, who was there with hundreds of firefighters, first responders, EMTs, everyone that were there that worked, pulled dead bodies out of the Pentagon, charred bodies, plane debris, all that stuff. And this guy says he was there, he didn't see anything. Well, the flight 77 hit the Pentagon at 9:37 a.m. And he, per his words, didn't arrive there to almost 4 p.m. if he was truly there. So you think about all that time elapsed, I'm sure a lot of the plane debris and stuff is going to be cleaned up, right? They're going to have that stuff cleared away. So there's one thing that he lied. So he kind of just, he kind of like put himself in a bad predicament, because now if he said he got there like at 9:45 or something, and then maybe he can start his little conspiracy stuff. But when he said he arrived there about 4 p.m., that's a big red flag for me. The other one was, he says he worked for Pratt and Whitney. He worked with them, I think, in like 2006 or
Yeah.
something like that. So 5 years after the events of 9/11. So yeah, the guy. I don't know what his end game is, but I know for I just found out that he's no longer working with McKee and others, and maybe they see how kooky he is. I don't know. It sounds like he's burning a lot of bridges along the way because a lot of people are just kind of dissing themselves from him. So I mean, I don't know. He's got me blocked as well, and I think I got him blocked on a few platforms. He's a weird guy. He talks about how he feared for his safety, but the guys go out there doing marathons and promoting his stuff. So yeah, I think he's just one of those guys that comes along and thinks he can maybe make a name for himself. And he's gonna fade just like the others. The other ones have faded. Richard
Yep.
Gates, Craig McKee has faded. Christopher Lynn no longer, no more, gone. What was the other one? Rebecca Roth, who has like three different names, lied. Never was a. She was a stewardess.
Yeah, she claims to be a stewardess. Yeah.
Claim was that yeah, that was a lie. So all these people have basically have faded away, no longer relevant because they don't come up with anything new. They
Right.
stay with the same BS stuff that's for the last decade. And people, you know what? And I've said this. I said this to McKee. I said a lot of people now, and I hate to say it, in my opinion, I don't really feel like they care about 9/11 no more. It's just been so saturated with toxic individuals and
Oh,
toxic information that people really don't even 23 years later is like, oh, it's just we get people out there think no planes were used that day or the crisis actors and all the other BS. I
yeah.
just think people they just got sick of it, and it really sucks for people like me and you and Nelson, Sean, and others who try to, you know, give people, real life information and more real time information, and it just gets saturated by these loony people.
Yeah. And, I'm like, let me run on that too, because, we basically have to go on the defense here. Now, this is the whole basis of it. Why we're so critical of these people is that, well, why would you waste your time? In a way, look, someone has to address these people because nobody really has. And the thing is that they're spreading misinformation on a
Mm-hmm.
very important subject that basically yourself, Sean, DJ Therma Detonator, myself, others like John Gold, Robbie Martin, Kevin Fenton and Ray Nolashevsky, John, all these other people. And basically, no one's heard of these people, right? Because so many of these people have pushed the no planes, no living hijackers, Judy Wood Space Beans, there was another one. I mean, and basically, whenever we're talking, I'll have people say, "Oh, you must be one of those truthers," and meaning of the truth movement that spread
Yeah,
the fringe conspiracies. And I already have to go on the defense, right? I'm sure that's happened to
yeah,
you, from time to time. And I'm like, no, no, man, I'm not one of
I'm
those
not truther.
people,
Yeah.
right? I'm not one of those people, and that ruined. It's like the momentum is ruined, and so
Mm.
now they're being very skeptical of you. And so when people like Adam Eisberg, I made a scathing video, and it was the last time I said I would ever address him. And the hell with his challenge. I mean, look, if he was the real deal, he would take that $5,000 and he would give it to the law firms of like Motley Rice or Creedland Creed, give it to victims' families for charity or donation. No, he basically wants to challenge, you know, one of
Sure.
us to basically debate him and give him time. I'm not giving any of these people time. No more debates with these people. I've heard his arguments before because what's it called? We've heard it from the Citizens Investigation Team, and that's who he promotes. It's a funny thing that
It's
you
just
bring up a
yeah,
point. Yeah, you
yeah.
bring up that point that he burns bridges, and boy, that's an understatement, man. Yeah, this guy who was friends with Craig McKee and Adam Ruff and those people, they don't like him anymore. Richard Gage doesn't like him anymore. He's on his own. And now he goes on these right wing, like small right wing, alt right, right, alt right shows, and they basically promote his stuff. And I'm like, that's where he's going to stay. But recently, he's called out saying, "I want to go on Joe Rogan." Well, let me tell you something. If he goes on Joe Rogan, what they might do to him is they might send a private investigator to look into his background, see if this guy is just basically a fake. He can't prove he was there. What has he got? Uh, basically these army like documents, but he can't prove that he was actually because they won't give him his documents according to him, his real legit documents. And look, you just brought up the point, that he basically misses. When he did talk to us, he said he was there at like 3:30, 4 o'clock. And okay, that means you came well afterwards, after this happened and the cleanup. So, and of course, he says, "Well, I have experience acknowledging plane debris." Well, that came afterwards too, many years later when you worked for Pratt and Whitney, right? It didn't
Right.
happen when you were there. All right. And now this is what he said before he closed the comments on that first video when he shot in his car. Because I brought it up to him. I said, "Look, are you going to say the 100 people are basically liars that saw the plane?" He goes, "Yes." Oh, okay. So we should listen to you. Well, I interviewed somebody who was there too, and he was the incident commander. In fact, the only person ever interviewed regarding 9/11. And what am I going to do? Say you're a liar? I mean, he's the liar. You're telling the truth. I mean, come on, guy, grow up. I mean, it's just ridiculous, Darin.
Right. No, I agree. So he's, like I said, he's becoming irrelevant, um, and he should be. He's a liar,
Yeah.
and yeah. I mean, he, like I said, there's not too many of them left. I only see him now. They only do it once a year now. When the anniversary comes up, that's when they start to promote their BS
Yeah.
from 10 years ago. So
Yeah, and it's like, listen, it's funny because I went down there last year with a friend of mine, and we saw maybe 20, and they're used to it. What, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, just be 100 people out. Now it's just like, it looks like a Bowery Street in the 1970s. These scragglers are coming in with their signs and whatnot, and the
because
signs are outdated. They've had those signs for like 15 years, and they don't get anything new. And when you brought up the point before, it's a really good point. Uh, you know, they have a shelf life. These people, I always give them a shelf life of 5 years. They're relevant for 5 years and then they disappear. Well, you know, these people, these new ones like Adam Eisberg, they don't learn anything new because everything new is basically declassified material. Canestraro document, Operation Encore, right? Because they don't believe in hijack and they don't believe anything relating to the hijackers. That we mean pre-intelligence. The hell with Bin Laden, the hell with the CIA, the hell with Abel Danger, the hell with all that. I don't need to study all that. I need to just say the hijackers don't mean anything. There were no planes. What do you have? Nothing. You have a
nothing.
bunch of superstition,
Right.
right? I
Absolutely.
mean, goodness great. It's just, I mean, at this point, it's basically an embarrassment, and I won't have anything to do with them anymore, Darin. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, there's no point, right? And I've had people tell me about 9/11 and what do you think of it? I was like, well, go back 8 years later or
Right.
earlier, go back to 1993 and the World Trade Center bombing in 1993, because it's the same people, the same ideology of what's going on. And that is so important. 93 is so important, Adam. I know we stressed
Oh,
it. Nelson did a fantastic film on it. 93 is so important. I can't stress it enough. If anybody's new and wants to learn about 9/11, don't start at 9/11. Don't start there. Go back and go back to at least 1993 and the World Trade Center bombing. And the reason I don't think it gets talked about a lot is because I think only 6 people died. It wasn't like considered a major event, because you don't hear about it. Nobody really
mm,
even talks about it, you know. And 1993 has so much questions, so much information, and so much information to learn. Is because you have Ramzi Youssef, whose uncle was the alleged mastermind 9/11, you
right.
know, and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. So, and Ramzi Youssef and his uncle were the ones who what they made the plans for the Bajinka plot, which is
Yes.
we considered the blueprint for 9/11, and that's where you have to start 93, go into 95, 96 with the Bojinka plot in the Philippines with people like Hakeem Abdul Murad, who was part of who was a trained pilot, who one of his missions was to die a martyr and to crash his plane into the CIA headquarters. and how their plans were to hijack numerous planes and plant bombs and put bombs on them and have them explode or crash and then have them crash into um, you know main monuments like the World Trade Center and Transamerica Building and Empire State Building, the Sears Tower, and so on. So that plan was known years before 9/11, and it all started with 93 with Ramsey Youssef and getting and bombing the World Trade Center and bombing the World Trade Center and going into the Bajinka plot, and then finally his uncle going into and doing the alleged mastermind on 9/11. So there's that time period between 93 and 2001, 8 years there where there's so much to learn before you talk about the planes being hijacked and on that fateful day. So much information, and I can't stress it enough because I learned so much in between that 8 year gap before 9/11.
Yeah, and look, a lot of this basically can be traced back, even before that. But just to keep it recent, so we won't expand. 93 is basically the basics because from Youssef you have uh Pachinko plot, which where the idea for 9/11 comes from, Millennium Plot, and then you have 9/11. I mean, the hell with the East Africa bombings. I mean, wait, we can just keep going all day long. But
Oh,
what we
sure. Yeah,
want to
absolutely.
show other people is basically we want to show a timeline of events where the intelligence services are basically monitoring these people as early as the early 90s. So it's not like, 9/11 just came out of nowhere and planned. Well, that's not true because in 1996, you have the NSA, the CIA who are monitoring bin Laden's satellite phone. Then they know about the Yemen hub, which is the worldwide Al Qaeda communications hub. So here you have intelligence service 5 years prior to the 9/11 attacks.
Yep.
But, the Al Qaeda hub itself basically is the nexus of everything because the intelligence services are listening to bin Laden and Al Qaeda around the world. Now, like I've always said before, if you're listening to the phone calls and they're talking about plans, well, guess what? That means the government didn't do anything to stop it. Now, if Al Qaeda wasn't talking about, say, the planes operation or whatnot, hey, maybe they really weren't involved. We need to know these people. And basically, still the government lied about it. So either way, you
Hmm.
still have at some level government complicity or malfeasance or a mixture of both. But I mean, to basically just come right out and just basically say, well, the hijackers don't matter. The hijackers are alive. The hijackers, didn't even exist. The planes don't exist. Or maybe half the planes existed because the real planes were the World Trade Center. I mean, they're all over the place. They can't agree to one another. And one thing you'll never see them, Darin, you'll never see them in court. I
No,
mean,
not
well, for one thing, and I want to get your thoughts on this one. Richard Gage is actually making a fictional movie about a fictional courtroom with evidence he'd like to use in a real court but can't. And this is his, groundbreaking revelation to 9/11. Darin, I mean, God, for God's sakes, I don't even know what to say. I mean, I'm at a loss.
yeah. So there's not much to say because that's the only way that he'll ever be heard in a court because it's going to be fictional. It's never going to happen in real life, Adam. We know that. I think didn't they try to have April Gallup go to court? They got laughed out and they got
Yeah.
fined. They, and people I'm sure are familiar with April Gallup and her story about the Pentagon, no plane, which was not true because she was passed out and was carried out and had no clue. So yeah, so she got laughed out of the courtroom. Her lawyer got fined. I think that was a Honecker special. Another
Yes, it
embarrassment
was.
there.
That's
So
right.
yeah, they'll never go to court if you can't get to the part where planes were used. You ain't gonna get nowhere. You might as well just stop. Just go on Rumble or go on some other platform and spew your BS. It's just not gonna happen. This is perception of reality is just not gonna happen there. You go to a courtroom and you're talking about, yeah, I don't think Flight 77 hit the Pentagon. You get out of my courtroom. I'm going to fine
Right.
you. Get out. So yeah, that's the same. These I call them no planners because that's what they are. I don't
Yeah.
care
No.
if That's what they are, and they don't like. You know what? And it really gets on their nerves when they're called that. They
Yes.
get it's like a sense of spot when you call them a no planer because they're like, well, I believe planes were used for the World Trade Center. Don't matter, dude. You didn't believe them for Shanksville or Pentagon. You're a no planer in my book.
Hmm.
you know. So
Really.
yeah, I mean, it's just it's laughable. These guys are laughable at this point. I think they're going to go to court. And I know, you know what? And I've had my, and you talked about Gene Artondo. I've had my run-ins with Gene, and we still don't like each other, and that's fine. I do give him credit for his activism. I
Yeah.
really wish he was on our side with the Pentagon and Shanksville. He'd be a great asset to promote 9/11. Um, um, he's just too stuck on this the demolition and building 7. It's clouded his judgment regarding other things much more useful. Um, because he entertains these guys, and he looks at their ideas, and I think somebody like Gene has so much passion for 9/11, probably more even all of us combined. The guy has a ton of passion. I will give him that. He just misguided, and he's let some of these guys just kind of, you know, I don't know, brainwash him a little bit and thinking something, that's totally not the truth. And and like I said, I do give him credit. I really do, and I'm not here to crap on him or nothing because he does care about it. But man, if he could just take that time and resources and just put it somewhere else where it's a little more
Mm.
useful, especially with these canistril files and Operation Encore. And Adam, I get it. You don't have. There's a lot of Arab names are tough. I still there's some today I still can't do. I try. Um, but there is a few ones out there. Like Khalid El Madar and Al Nawafa Hazmi are very important to know because those were the ones that came into the United States and were there and they were being monitored, and those are the ones maybe you should learn, and they are important because those guys were part of the Malaysian summit meeting there with KSM and others, and so yeah, I mean there's some names to learn, but you don't have to know them all. There's maybe set a goal and say, hey, I'm gonna remember these ones that came into the United States. There was the ones being monitored on the West Coast there. And they eventually became, as we know, hijackers of Flight 77. So yeah, it's just like I said, I'm not here to just land based people, but at the same time, it's 23 years, Adam. Like Jesus, how many more years do we have to go on and talk about? If we're still saying, I don't know what hit the Pentagon. It's just it's mind boggling to me.
I'm I shouldn't be surprised at this point, but I am because I still can't believe that we have grown adults that basically say that the planes are holograms or that plane debris can be planted in full view of everybody. Now, especially when you have the Pentagon, right? You got
Mm-hmm.
people walking around outside. You got all these people outside near Arlington Drive. You have all these people that basically saw the plane. They actually saw the plane crash into the building. And to say that everybody's in on it and everyone's lying or they're well, first of all, an egregious claim, right? And yet I challenge them. I tell them, listen, if you can at least give me half, show me how they're lying, show me where their government assets are getting money, then you have a case, right? Because that's exactly what happened, like with your point you raised with April Gallup. April Gallup in 2010, I believe, actually went to court. Her lawyer, by the way, was William Vesey, and she had there were two others. Went to court, sued George
Yes,
Bush,
yes,
Dick Cheney, General Joint Chief of Staff Richard Myers, um, and said that she didn't see plane debris. Now, what? Now, she actually gave oral testimony to I think, to the Pentagon Department, and I forgot it was Department of the Army, I think. Don't quote me on that. But she also gave testimony to the Library of Congress, which is oral. And what did she say? She said that when she was inside the Pentagon, she heard an explosion. She was with her newborn, and then some, pieces of the Pentagon fell on her. She was actually carried out. She fainted.
yes. She fainted. Yes.
Now, if she fainted, of course you're not going to see anything because the next thing she says, she woke up in the hospital. The FBI questioned her about what happened. Later, she hooks up with Barbara Honegger.
Yep.
Barbara Honegger, I guess, maybe put it in her head. Yeah, you didn't see plane debris, but she never mentions how how she fainted ever again outside of that. She went to court and revised her suit afterwards under the heated arguments of William Vesey, our lawyer, because Vesey didn't want Honegger on. So then now she wants to sue Dick Cheney, Donna Rumsfeld, uh, Richard
I think she
Myers.
sued Osama bin Laden.
Yes,
I think she sued OBL. Didn't she?
Osama bin Laden, American Airlines.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, she basically says, I'm not joking here, guys. She basically said, well, because if the other theories are true, I'm still a victim. So, in other words, she wasn't convinced on her own accord about no plane crashing into the Pentagon. And I think she knew that she messed
Right.
up. Well, judge heard this and just said this is a frivolous lawsuit. Not only was it frivolous, he fined all three of those lawyers $5,000 each and said, get the hell out
Yes.
of my courtroom. And we never heard from Maple Gallup again. And that means that
No.
no one else ever tried, not Eisenberg, not Bolin, not Roth, and anybody else, all these bigwigs, self professed experts, no one ever took that case up. And believe me, if Eisenberg was a man of his word, if Christopher Bolin was a man of his word, any one of these people, Richard Gage, any no planer at the Pentagon or fake plane, whatever, you would actually have the gumption to take your theory, your alleged evidence, to a courtroom. But believe it or not, you know what they'll say, Darin? Well, the courts are all in on it too. They won't hear us. So well, then what the hell are you arguing for? What are you here for? I'm here because I want to see a case go to court with evidence regarding the additional evidence that we now have, as opposed to back in 2002. We have a lot more evidence. In fact, Vivek Ramaswamy basically says it. He's running for president. Well, he used to. Basically says, yeah, we have more evidence now. We can have a new investigation. Well, guess what? I agree with him. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
I mean, at this point, we could have a new investigation. Are the Truth Movement, who once used to make
But
that declaration,
that's
want a new move? I don't know.
yeah. Well, that's the thing, Adam. Who's going to head it? Who's going to be support, and who's going to be the one, promoting it? Are we still going to just fall into the same trap again, where terrorists? There's nothing like that. Is that what's going to happen with the new investigation? That you know what I mean? Or are we actually going to get away from the crazy conspiracies? Are we actually going to take the Canistero files and Operation Encore and everything, put it together, and look what the Florida Bulldog has done? Newspaper, just absolute, just nonstop critical information that the mainstream media does not do anything with. No, they do nothing with. There's only a few people that promote it. On you're one, and there's a few others. But the Florida Bulldog has presented so much evidence with Saudi Arabia, and with Masoud Al-Jarrah and the ministry over there with Saudi Arabia, knowing about Omar Bayoumi and Osama bin, actual agents with Saudi Arabia, basically helping these hijackers or future hijackers in Waffle House and Khalil al-Mihdhar.
Right.
And and even having video of Omar Bayoumi casing the World Trade Center and the Capitol. It's just it's crazy. We have all this information, and it's funny. I want to bring this up is because a lot of these people that we talked about will talk about all the eyewitnesses at the Pentagon were crisis actors, or were paid agents, right? Center with controlled demolition. They'll say they use the evidence for the fire or other ones involved, saying, "Oh, they heard explosions and this and that." Those eyewitnesses matter, but not the ones at the Pentagon or Shanksville. And that's what I always use, But yeah, like I said, going back to the Canistero files and Operation Encore, it's just a lot of people want to talk about government complicity. Well, you kind of have it with the CIA, running an illegal operation with Saudi Arabia out west. And then you can even, if you want to do more information, with out east with the Israelis, and with the, with the art students, the over 2,000 art students, 200. I'm sorry, 200 art students that were
Yeah.
involved, and then monitoring the hijackers out east with with Ada and his crew. So yeah, there's so much you can talk about the complicity with the CIA, but we don't want to do that. We want to talk about no planes and no hijackers, and it's just not going to get you anywhere. You're just going to get laughed at and criticized, and rightfully so. But we have complicity with the CIA and Saudi Arabia running a legal operation out west. And for some reason, we don't want to talk to them, and no hijackers. That's basically what 9/11 has come to for the truth movement. It's controlled
Yeah.
demolition, building seven,
Yeah.
and no hijackers. That's
Yeah.
the
I
truth
mean,
movement.
yeah, it's such a condensed story that they make for themselves. I mean, it never expands outside of it. And you know what? You may think we're repetitive at this point, but we want to hammer it home about how, I mean, irresponsible it is to basically say, look, let me put it to you this way. If they say that the planes weren't hijacked, that means the hijacker's not on board. If the hijacker's not on board, that means any connection with the intelligence services are severed. So that means the CIA, Saudi intelligence, Israeli intelligence are monitoring who? Well, the hijackers. Well, if the hijackers don't exist, you have no connection between the intelligence services and the hijackers. So that means what do you have? You have holograms, fake planes flown by who? Depicted by who? Who are these people? I mean, I used to make fun of these people and say, well, they believe in drone airliners. What do you have? Dov Zakheim with an Atari joystick in a closet somewhere? I mean, what can you prove? Names to faces, faces to events. You have nothing. And this is the reason why Darin and myself are doing a video like this. It's not so that we can basically just bash them and just call them names and whatnot and criticize them. It's to show, the public who are becoming aware or who have been aware and just basically are listening to these people that you're making a mistake by listening to these people because they're actually proposing ridiculous theories that have no merit or no evidence whatsoever. Now, look, I would be remiss, and I've said it before, that I don't want people just to believe my word. I hope when someone makes a video, someone watches one of my videos, that they do their own due diligence and say, "Hey, wait a minute, how can I find this out? Hey, by the way, you're now an investigator because you actually went to research the information that you watched on a video." And I always tell people to research the stuff that I'm saying. So this way, you know that what I'm saying is factual because what I want and what you have been doing and what Sean and DJ Double Detonator have done and the kids, Ben and Eric at Project New American Century, the new one, Jonathan Bellasord, dang, these guys, what we want is basically to inform our audience about what happened because
Right.
information is power and power belongs in the hands of the people. I've always believed that. And, you know, I want to wrap this up too because, the anniversary is coming up. And
Yes.
are we going to see anything different this way, Darren, or are we going to see the same song?
I think you're going to see the same song, and I think you're going to see the pamphlets down there. 9/11 was an inside job. Did you know a third building fell? It's just same thing, the tiring same thing all over again. It really sucks. It really does because
Yeah.
it's really not about me or you. And it's not
No.
about the other victims and the families that suffered that day, who continue to suffer 23 years later. And to go out there and saying 9/11 is an inside job. Well, how is it an inside job? That's the question. Are we just going to say, "Oh, George Bush planned it, George Bush operated it"? Is that what you're going to say, or are you going to back it up by some claim, some pertinent information? Well, we can go back to the Canistero files where we had a, our intelligence agency involved in doing a legal operation. they were monitoring these potential hijackers, these future hijackers. Why didn't they tell the FBI? Why wasn't the FBI involved? Why was John O'Neill's unit not notified? Because Ali Soufan said it best. He said he could have stopped 9/11 if they would have had that information. And it goes back to Gene talking about not learning Arab names, and I get it; it's tough. You know what? There's some great American names to learn. Tom Wilshire is one name to know. Richard Blee is one name to go know. Cofer Black, George Tenet. Those are good American names to know because those guys never got in trouble. Those guys never got held responsible. Those guys never had any accountability. Those guys never went to jail, and they should have. But our focus is handing out pamphlets saying 9/11 is an inside job. Building. Did you know a third building fell? That's the truth movement in a nutshell, and it really sucks because what it does it just craps on all these victims and these families that suffer that and who continue to suffer. That day and all the millions of all the innocent people who have died since the legal wars and everything have died since 9/11. It's just chaos of what's happened 23 years ago till now and how we're still fighting stupid wars and you know and for what, Adam? Just to go down to ground zero and just promote the same thing over and over again. But there's really no answer because we're not talking about anything else. There's nothing new to talk about with the truth movement. It's just the same regurgitated stuff over and over again. And like I said before, I think that's why people are just tired of just 9/11 in general, talking about it because it's just the same thing over. It's stale. It's just very stale.
Unfortunately, I have to agree with you in that it'll be the same old song. If I went down to ground zero, and I can't this year because I'm working, but if I went down there, I'm sure I'm going to see Jerry Laratonda. I'm sure I'm going to see Sandra Jelmy. I'm sure I'm going to see Cat Waters and Glenn Zamarov and Ross Muir and all these people, and they're just going to basically say the same thing. All right. It's not going to affect anybody except for the person who was basically born after 9/11 that don't know much about 9/11. They may take a pamphlet here and there, but that's it. These people are not going to the Southern District of New York. These people are not going to Washington, D.C. And all they could hope for is Richard Gage and to save us. And he's not going to save nobody because he's using his money for a fictional courtroom and for trips to Bermuda with his wife, Gail. Look, if you ever want to get ahead of time, if you ever want to learn something new, there are still people out there. Darin Harvey, Sean Russell for Beyond Ground Zero, Ben and Eric, Project A New American Century, Jonathan Bellasort, myself, even DJ Dumbadead, who is still around. He's still here. We're here to take your questions and whatnot. If you ever want to talk about certain things, I try to make myself, available at, even in late hours or whatnot. And I try to be as accommodating as I can on all viral media. And I think, this way, yeah, I wish I had the numbers like, Richard Gage has, but I'm not jealous of it. I mean, I'm not going to be very popular because, I'm a dry guy. I stick to just the facts, just like you. And yeah, do we wish we had bigger platforms? Yeah, but we know we're not because more people are, born after 9/11. The rest of the real truth movement are basically, endued with these fringe conspiracies. We also have to unbrainwash them, and then that takes time. So yeah, time is of the essence. We don't got the numbers, but we got the right people listening to us, the right people respecting our points and getting these interviews with us and whatnot. Darin, all right, what are you working on? What would you like to do? What would you like to do in the future? And with the anniversary coming up.
Yeah. So, like I said, Sean, who I collaborate on our podcast for the Beyond Ground Zero, he's been busy, and we're going to be doing some stuff coming up. He just messaged me, so we're going to get together and get some episodes popping out here again soon. So yeah, it just the anniversary. It's to me, it's just it's still a sad time for me. It's still I was 18 when 9/11 happened, and I still to this day it's so important to me. It really is to I feel so bad for the people that lost their lives that day, the families who are still grieving, because a lot of those people who died, it's died a horrific death, and it's just I love to have justice for them and
Mm.
get closure because I still don't think the families have gotten closure at all. I think our government has done a terrible job of giving these families closure because I still think there's some very pertinent information, Adam, that's still locked up that's not being released to the public. Just because it makes the United States, it makes Saudi Arabia, it makes even Israel look bad, because they had a chance to stop 9/11. 9/11 should have never happened, and they had a chance to stop it, and they failed to do so. They failed to protect their people here, um, and like I said, it's not to ramble on, but we have to be careful today with the Middle East going on right now. Not to go off topic, but
Mm.
our foreign policy over there, you have to be very careful because we don't want another 9/11 to happen, and it definitely can happen again if we if the United States doesn't get their act together over there in the Middle East. Because, like I said, when you go over there and bomb and kill innocents, like the United States has been doing in Israel and stuff for years, stuff like 9/11 happens, and we have to be very careful, and we definitely don't want to have another 9/11 on our hands, because it definitely can happen if we're not careful.
Yeah, listen, what a way to end it too, because that's exactly what's looked like it might happen in the next 7 to 8 years, is that with all these deaths in Gaza and now extending to
Mm-hmm.
Lebanon, I mean, we're really asking for it afterwards. And look,
Right.
um, I'm working on an article right now. Currently, I'm almost, I'm about three-quarters of the way. It's about Pachinko plot. Um,
Good.
After
Good.
that, I'm still going to work on my new channel. I'm still uploading videos now. I still got maybe about 800 left to where I was at with the old channel. Um, I can't wait to see you and Sean start again. I'm currently doing a special edition with Ben and Eric at Project for New American Century right around the anniversary. And there's still
Awesome.
some projects, yeah, still some projects coming up. So, Darin, I'd like to start doing our collabs on the regular again. I know we've been busy with real life, but where can they find you at, Darin?
For my 9/11 stuff, I'm more active on Twitter or X, for 9/11 stuff. Just FYI, if you want to talk 9/11, you're gonna see a lot of Michigan stuff, football. I
Yeah.
do post stuff, but yeah, no, I discuss my 9/11 stuff mostly on because you just get censored too much on Facebook. If
Oh,
it is, I don't want to deal with that. So if you want to have questions about 9/11, anything up to it, please message me or talk to me. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. I love talking 9/11. I love talking the stuff before 9/11 because I feel it's just as important, the events leading up to it. So, yeah, absolutely. Feel free to message me or whatever. We can talk for sure.
yeah, same thing. Underscore Adam Fitzgerald. I'm easy to find. You just Google my name, Adam Fitzgerald 911. I come up, and all my. By the way, if you go on Twitter, I've refused to call it X. You'll see a pinned tweet I have, and it goes to all the links to all the
Yep.
sites that I'm currently active on. You can reach me on Facebook Messenger if you still use it. So, Darin, I'll see you in 2 weeks, and thanks for joining in with us, guys.